I mean, come on, guys. That was a pretty cool intro. That's our brand new intro. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm always looking to improve our channel. I did pay good money for that professional movie, I guess you could say, esque type intro. Nonetheless, I get that you guys are here for covering just Odell Beckham today. You guys just want to talk about Odell Beckham. Not the Rams, not the 49ers. You just want to talk about Odell Beckham. Because for some reason, there's just a media circus always around this guy. When he was in the Browns uniform, when he was in the Giants, he was the best wide receiver of all time. Better than Randy Moss at one point. But first, can we just talk about Deshaun Jackson? I mean, seriously, what the heck was that? No, I mean, literally, yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, go to YouTube right now. The guy caught the ball. This must have been, 30, 40-yard gain, 40-yard catch. Caught the ball. Clear as day. It was a touchdown. All he had to do was run straight. No, Deshaun Jackson runs backwards, like literally 45-degree angle back to the left, into the arms of a defending tackler. The guy knocks the ball out. Deshaun Jackson fumbles the ball. The defensive player, don't even know who it was. I didn't even care because everybody was looking at Deshaun Jackson. The guy runs back all the way. Turnover. Deshaun Jackson rips off his helmet like the quarterback did something. Like he looked to blame somebody else. Deshaun Jackson, this is why you are no longer on the Rams. This is why Odell Beckham is now going to be the greatest wide receiver of all time and lead the Rams to a Super Bowl. At least that's what the public thinks. What's going on, guys? Name is Matt Downs, owner of Daily Grind Fantasy Sports. We're going to be covering this Rams vs 49ers slate on DraftKings. Cannot wait to break it down. Before we do that, just want to give a quick update on my health. I've been getting increasingly better. As you guys can see, I can pretty much talk. Just can't say some words. They're actually a lot harder to say my S's and my F's. I literally can't say it because this part of my mouth is still numb. I'm dealing with Bell's palsy symptoms, so I appreciate all the support. Appreciate you guys as a community. Appreciate all the thoughts and prayers there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this Rams vs 49ers matchup. Now, before talking about every single slate, you guys know I love to talk about the spread, who's favored, how many points are being scored. 50.5 over under here between the Rams and the 49ers. 49ers are at home, so this game's supposed to be competitive. Only a 3-point spread here for the Rams. And this game is expected to be relatively higher scoring. 50.5 is actually pretty high. If you guys think back to the main slate, which was played yesterday, by the way, did not do well on that, but I made all my money back and then some more. I almost had the GPP takedown in NBA. If you guys think back to that main slate, 50.5 is actually, in the top 50% in terms of the scoring. So the big question is, are defenses in play? They have been recently because of the random scoring touchdowns, but no, I don't think the defenses are in play here again. 14.2% here for the Rams is what we're coming out to in terms of ownership. For the 49ers, 12.4%. So you got to think, you're eliminating about 26-27% of the public right off the bat just by fading the defenses altogether. They have a very low probability of making the optimal. You guys know, for any of you guys coming back and watching my breakdowns for the showdowns, that I go position by position, not game by game, team by team, and I break down each position, whether they're cash viable, whether they're GPP viable, give you some of my value plays. My favorite value play for last night's slate was Zay Jones, because the guy was expected to play, 90+% of snaps. He didn't play quite that, but he was still on the field. Majority of the game. It was only $600 to pay off his price tag, and then some at 3.2 points. So I'll be giving you guys some of my favorite value plays, some ways to get different, my favorite contrarian captains, all that good stuff. By the way, all this is updated on dgfantasy.com, where I'll give you guys my favorite build types, favorite captains, favorite cash plays, all that good stuff. Ownership projections, actual projections, industry average projections, pull off of Prize Picks and some other player prop sites. All that's uploaded on the back end. Yes, I'm a complete nerd, so I look at this stuff 24/7. So I'll be updating that as well for the rest of the day. But let's go ahead and start here at the quarterback position with the Los Angeles Rams. Again, favored team, so they're expected to throw and run the ball the majority of the game. Very balanced type approach. Matthew Stafford, though, is going to be the focal point of this offense. No surprising stats there. 50.2% owned, 10.8K, which is actually relatively cheap for a guy throwing the ball all the time. The Cooper Kupp, just Cooper Kupp, nobody else. I do like that fantasy projection at 20 fantasy points right now is what he's penned at. I do like the over on that if I had to bet. So like I said, I do like him here. Should be a focal point in cash games. If you are pairing one of his wide receivers in the captain spot, make sure you always have Matthew Stafford in the flex position, that you're capitalizing on the upside of his touchdowns, the wide receiver touchdowns. It increases your upside in general, and both those players should be in the optimal. Next, we have the running back position here with Darrell Henderson, another decently owned guy at 28.4%. Wasn't as high as I thought it would be at 9.2K. That price tag is very lofty. Now, I don't think he's necessarily a cash must. I don't think he's a cash lock. I do think he's cash viable at 16 fantasy points is what we have him projected at. Sony Michel also at 5K, 11.1%, 5.6 fantasy production is what we have him at. Right now, these guys are just such an awkward price tag. I don't know whether they cover their price tags or not. Sonny Michel, probably not, because again, he has to get involved a lot more in the receiving game. Usually when the Rams are playing from behind, which I'm not saying they can't play from behind in this game, but the game script looks to be favoring the Rams somewhat. Sonny Michel probably isn't going to be utilized as much as he is in games where they are playing from behind. So Darrell Henderson is my favorite running back here from this team. That being said, 9.2K is just such an awkward price tag. You're going to have to pick between him, Kupp, Stafford, and then even coming back with Jimmy Garoppolo there as another stud pay-up option. So like all these options here, I don't know if Darrell Henderson takes priority, especially over Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. So Darrell Henderson, 28.4%. I do consider him more of a GVP play. I definitely like him as a GVP captain play because nobody's going to go there. I do like his projection, and I won't hate you if you end up playing him in cash. Just don't play him over Cooper Kupp. Speaking of Cooper Kupp, let's go over the wide receiver position here. He is the highest owned on the slate, even higher owned than Matthew Stafford at 12K. Crazy to see, I know. But right now, 54.9% ownership, 23-point projection. That just makes a lot of sense. The projection's up on him. The ownership's up on him. He should be one of the highest scoring players on the slate. We know what he can do in this offense. He honestly should be one of the top wide receivers by the end of the season in terms of overall fantasy projection. Wouldn't be surprised if he ended up number 1. But now, let's get to the segment everybody has come to this video to talk about because for some reason, everybody in the world just loves Odell Beckham. I do not. I don't know why people love Odell Beckham so much. I think he's a drama queen. I really do. Regardless of my stance on his drama, Odell Beckham at $7,400. Let's talk about it. Okay, let's look first of all at the depth chart. So we know Robert Woods unfortunately went out with an injury. By the way, Robert Woods was one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL, just straight up, because you know he didn't get a lot of praise because he was always out there for blocking. He's out there for blocking. He can catch the ball. He can do a lot of things. Odell Beckham can also do a lot of things. But the thing with Odell Beckham and Robert Woods is they're really not the same type of player. So if I'm being completely honest, I'm not gonna know how this entire picture is gonna look here for the Rams until I see them play the game. But we can take a look here at the depth chart here. Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham, Van Jefferson next on the list. So yes, Odell Beckham is that wide receiver number 2, at least according to the depth chart. And the one cool thing with the Rams is that they use a lot of wide receiver 3 sets. Looking back to week 9 here, we have Robert Woods playing 100% of the snaps, Cooper Kupp playing 100% of the snaps, and then Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson playing 97 and 96% of snaps. So the wide receivers are literally out there the entire game. That being said, I would not be surprised if we saw a 95%, at least in terms of snap counts, of Odell Beckham at $7,400. I also wouldn't be surprised if we see his backup here because, again, this is his first game back. I'm not even going to pronounce his name. His last name, it just confuses me. There's too many W's and K's in there. Ben, we're going to call him. Big Ben. I wouldn't be surprised if he splits targets with him. That being said, gun to my head, Odell Beckham, I mean, he's a fantastic wide receiver. Why not? I mean, he's seen 3 different offenses at this point in his career. Why not just throw him into a wide receiver number 2 role? Let them see what they do. Matthew Stafford, very talented as well. Odell Beckham, $7,400. I think he's a decent play. There, I said it. I said Odell Beckham is a decent play. But an even better play, if we look further down the pecking order here, is going to be Van Jefferson, the wide receiver 3. He's already been equated to this offense. We already know what to expect from Van Jefferson. We know he's going to play about 90% of the snaps. So $5,400 makes for technically a better value play if you look at that in terms of the snap counts compared to Odell Beckham. So yes, I have prioritized my wide receivers here on the depth chart. Cooper Kupp is going to be my favorite for obvious reasons. Van Jefferson next because of the value perspective, and he's already been acquainted into this offense. And then Odell Beckham at $7,400. I wouldn't be surprised if we load up the slate and we see Odell Beckham, 50+% owned just because it's Odell Beckham. So that's another reason, he could be a sharp fade here in GPPs, but for cash, I definitely would not consider Odell Beckham. I think Van Jefferson's a safer pick. I think Cooper Kupp's a safer pick, and I'm just going to move on with that take. Switching over to the tight end position here, we have Tyler Higbee, another guy that's just kind of flying under the radar, and again, he has been playing a majority of the snaps. Right now, industry averages have him projected at, let's take a look at the receiving yards, 35.5 receiving yards compared to Van Jefferson's 43.5. So they're not as confident in him getting as much run down the field. That being said, we have him projected for 8.17 points at 27.9% ownership. Wouldn't consider him for cash. Could be a good GPP target, especially if he does catch a touchdown. And then last but not least, we have one of the better kickers in the NFL, at least according according to fantasy stats this season. Matt Gay averaging 9.7 on the season. Nothing more needs to be said. If you're looking for another value play here, 4.2K. I know it's boring, but Matt Gay has been fantastic. I do like him here, especially if the Rams are in the red zone quite often. I do expect him to get a lot of opportunities. So 9.7 points is what we have projected. We're just going to take his 2021 average. This game is relatively higher scoring. I do like him here as a last piece for cash. And now let's talk about this 49ers picture, which again, not very straightforward whatsoever. Never is. The 49ers, I hate talking about them. I have to do so much research before the slate loads, before I record my videos, because it's just a gigantic headache. That being said, Jimmy G here at 10K. This one's interesting. 36.1% ownership. However, you have to look at his fantasy projection. 14 compared to, let's talk about Darrell Henderson, who was 16. It was lower owned. This offense is very balanced, and not in a good way. They have to rely more on the running game than their passing game because Jimmy G's not that good. So yes, Jimmy G could go out and dot up the entire Rams offense. Unlikely. I don't think it happens. That being said, I don't know if Jimmy G is a necessity in cash. I got done talking about whether you're going to prioritize Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Darrell Henderson, Jimmy G when you pay up. I think you honestly prioritize those three. So again, depending on how your builds kind of look, I think you do rely more on the Rams, especially if you're paying down for a guy with better value there in Darrell Henderson. Jimmy G at 14 fantasy points. It looks like the public's not really that high on him, and there's some better value on this team, at least at the wide receiver and running back position. And let's actually talk about that right now. You're switching over to the running back position. We have Eli Mitchell projected at 12 fantasy points. Talked about the better value here. He's only 6.4K. And just to kind of update you guys here, Jermichael Hasty is ruled out for this game versus the Rams. So Eli Mitchell does get a slight bump along with some of these other backup running backs. Kyle Juszczyk at 2K. He's always been involved in this offense, whether there's injuries or not. Do expect him to be involved a little bit more. Plus, he has that PPR upside. Kyle Juszczyk is just used as a fullback catching back, I guess you could say. He's not a typical fullback. They barely use him as an actual fullback. They use him more in the receiving game here, getting 4 targets through his past 5-6 weeks. So Kyle Juszczyk is always in play. I don't hate him as a last piece. I do prefer him more for GPPs, but Eli Mitchell is the guy I want to target today. He's only showing 31.7% ownership, but that doesn't really make sense. When you look at the fantasy projection at 12 points, you look at this being a relatively competitive game, they should have to rely on Eli Mitchell a ton. But we got Eli Mitchell as the main running back, and we got Kyle Juszczyk as the backup the starting fullback, I guess you could say backup running back. But who's next in line? There's always 3 running backs that are being used in this offense. Well, technically, next in the depth chart here is going to be Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson at the running back position is right behind Jermichael Hasty, as you guys can see here. And then also taking a look at the fullback position, there's Kyle Juszczyk. So taking a look here at the price tags, Eli Mitchell at 6.4K, I actually love. I consider him definitely cash viable, a salary saver at 6.4K, and has tremendous upside, being one of the highest scoring players, at least in this offense. And then Jeff Wilson, if he's actually going to play that running back 3 role, we technically haven't seen him in a couple weeks here. If we actually look at those snap counts, we actually haven't seen him touch the field in a very long time. But technically in the depth chart, he's number 3. So yes, technically, the 49ers could do everything, but just looking at the depth chart, looking at the fact that Jeff Wilson hasn't been playing whatsoever, Eli Mitchell is in for a heavy workload, and I honestly like that fantasy projection over again at 12 points. So yes, I consider Eli Mitchell cash viable. I consider him the safer option than Jimmy G, as weird as that sounds. And this being a competitive matchup, I don't see why they don't utilize Eli Mitchell a lot. And switching over to the wide receiver position, this is another crazy position to talk about for the 49ers because Brandon Ayuk is finally a thing. If we take a look at the snap counts going back to week 9 here, Brandon Ayuk out-snapped Deebo Samuel for the second time this season. So they're finally realizing that Ayuk has hands and that he's a talented player. That's good. Good for the 49ers. However, for fantasy, he's still not projected that much. I don't know what's going on there. At 10 points, we have Deebo Samuel projected at 17. Deebo Samuel has technically been doing very well, even with Ayuk eating into his time. As you can see here, 26.1 points, 11.3, even though Ayuk has outsnapped in the past 2 weeks. So this, to me, this looks like an edge. If he's only going to be 17.7% owned with Ayuk, I do like to pivot just directly off of Deebo Samuel. Plus, you're saving a lot of salary. I don't know if you necessarily have to pay up for Deebo Samuel at 9K. I get it. He's still the wide receiver number 1. He's technically the 3rd highest owned on the slate. So it looks like that's where the public is going. But this looks like a nice pivot spot. I do like Brandon Ayuk a lot more in terms of value than Deebo Samuel. However, I do still like the upside on Deebo Samuel. As you can see, the industry does agree with that. And then the rest of these guys. So I was all over Sanu here, but he is out for week 10. He was technically playing about 50% of the snaps through the past 2 weeks. It looks like they found their wide receiver number 3. They've been just kind of in this weird limbo with their wide receivers the entire season. But now Mohamed Sanu, wide receiver 3, out. So where do we look for wide receiver value here for the rest of the slate? You got to look to Sherfield at $200. You got to look at Juwan Jennings, that's right. $200 as well. These guys are technically the wide receiver 3 and 4 in this offense. And if you look at snap counts, they are literally playing the exact same. They both played 8 and 7%, 12 and 12, 16, 29. So they're pretty much out there the exact same amount. So pick a player, I guess. Both projected right now for 3.2 fantasy points, and both fantastic value plays, I think, at the wide receiver position. So just to kind of recap here, I do like Deebo Samuel. He's still the best wide receiver in this offense. Technically plays just as much as Brandon Ayuk. Therefore, I do like Ayuk as a nice GPP pivot. And then Sherfield and Jennings make for tremendous value plays. All they have to do is catch the ball one time. Again, we joke about this all the time on these videos. At $200, you literally have to get the 0.4 points. So you literally just have to catch a ball to pay off your value. Do I think any one of these wide receivers are cash necessities? No, but I wouldn't hate landing on Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk as the last piece. Then last but not least, we have George Kittle himself. Was on the snap count last week, coming back the first week after an injury. He played 75, I think I remember, 75% of snaps, 73% of snaps. So he technically played a decent amount. We're used to seeing George Kittle on the field 100% of the time. He's not carrying an injury designation whatsoever. We haven't read any reports, so I can only assume he plays 100% of the snaps now. Therefore, George Kittle makes for another great GPP play at 29.9%. Going to be a very awkward price tag. People are going to see the fact that he didn't play that much last week. Still did well with the opportunities that are given. But yeah, it looks like he's trending upward. They're going to need him very much so here versus the Los Angeles Rams at 12 fantasy points is what the industry hasn't projected at. And a very good matchup. It looks like the Rams do struggle against opposing tight ends. So yes, I do like George Kittle here. I don't think he's cash necessity, or I don't think he's cash viable, because there are some better other value plays on the slate. But I still do like George Kittle a lot in terms of upside. And yes, I do prefer the other kicker, Matt Gay, compared to Robbie Gould. However, I do like both of them. Robbie Gould's also a decent option here if you want to go to a double kicker format. I really wouldn't hate that, especially if the 49ers do get ahead early. They could rely on Robbie Gould a little bit later in the slate. And that will be my breakdown, guys. So just to kind of recap here, I do like the value plays from the running back position for the 49ers. I do like Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson's a great value play. I like both the kickers. And then also, if you're really trying to get different, pay down at the wide receiver position for those two $200 wide receivers on the 49ers side of the ball. But without further ado, let's now switch over to my favorite prize pick entry on this slate. If you guys haven't signed up for prize picks, first of all, what are you doing? One of our biggest partners, enter code using DGF at sign up for a 100% matchup to $100. Helps us out, helps you guys out, gives you free $100. You guys can literally just play the $100, never play again if you hate the format. It's literally just free, so I don't know why you guys wouldn't do it. But yeah, my favorite play here on the slate is going to be 55.5 receiving yards over for George Kittle. Like I said, I do expect him to play close to 100% of the snaps. There's really no reason why he shouldn't. They're going to need him here versus the Rams. I like his total here at 55.5. I usually don't give a single prop. I usually give fantasy scores. But I did talk about some of my plays, some of my favorite plays here throughout the video. But I do like George Kittle here at 55.5. I'm going to hit the over on his receiving yards. And that will wrap up my video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course, smash that like button for all of our future NFL content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.